We've got a charged atmosphere for two rivals in the East Division. It's the Moonshine Throwdown, Marshall and Western Kentucky.
It's intercepted by Key, and Key has one man to beat. A nice cut move. Edwards can't get him. Key takes it all the way. A pick six for Devin Key.
There goes Key. Splits the defenders and he's gone. 65 yards, he completes it with a somersault.
So please join me in welcoming the 21st head coach in WKU football history, Tyson Helton.
And Marshall's going to finish the year 9-4 and champions of the 2018 Gasparilla Bowl, the sixth consecutive bowl win for the Marshall Thundering Herd.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. The series of position group breakdowns will continue this week. We are talking special teams. A lot is up in the air with special teams because some of these positions we won't know get filled until sometimes the lead into the game of week one or the last couple of days of summer practice. So we'll give you what we can. Trace is here to talk about the herd, and then we'll get Steven in here and we'll talk about the toppers. Of course, find us on Twitter at MoonshineTD and at MSTD_podcast. And, of course, you can find the show anywhere, basically. But the big ones, of course, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and anywhere else you can find a podcast pretty much. So let's get into it, Trace. Let's talk about Marshall special teams. Phil still ranks this unit tied for third in Conference USA with North Texas. But wait, 51, number 51 nationally. Not too bad. Pretty much the whole unit is back with the exception of a couple of guys, but, it's a pretty solid unit. So if you want to talk about them a little bit, we'll talk about starters and then we'll, move it on down the list. So let's talk to me a little bit about herd special teams. Let's give these guys some insight.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty excited for the unit this year. I think they return a lot of crucial guys. Both kickers are back. Warwasser's back. And of course, Lefevre's back. They ended up having solid years last year. I said I was so pleased with how Lefevre progressed last year. He ended up being, if you remember, I do at least, my special teams MVP from 2018. He ended up getting that nod when we did that episode. So I'm excited to see him back. He's having a really good camp. It sounds like Warwasser, hit 70+% of his field goals last year. I think he'll be better. The only questions they have really are punt returner and kick returner. But I feel like that's every year to an extent. Keon Davis is gone now, so that's a big loss in the kickoff return department because he was really good for 2 straight years. The last couple of years, he was so good there. And then punt returner, they really haven't had let's be honest, they really haven't had a dynamic punt returner in several years. I feel like the last one they had was probably DeAndre Reeves, but since then, they really haven't had much. I remember looking at stats a couple of times in the past couple of years, and they were really low in punt return yards per game. So it's just not that big of a factor for them. But Marcel Williams was a pretty decent punt returner last year. He's gone, of course. So they're going to have to find somebody there, which we have some ideas at least. Not that it's a for sure thing, but we have some ideas. And the special teams unit itself. Think about how important it's been for Marshall over the years. That's what Doc focuses on so hard. It's well documented how important the special teams are to him. I have a couple little nuggets here to add in later about the special team success that Marshall has had over the years. So, but yeah, this is it's going to be another, I think top 3 in the league's fair because really they don't lose much. So I'm excited to see what they can do.
Well, you mentioned, you lose your primary kick returning weapon and your primary punt returner. So that's 2. If there are 2 positions that are, I don't want to say easy to replace, but easy to replace because it's, every year it seems like it could be somebody new unless you have a Keon Davis that just electrifies for 2 straight years. So, but the main core is there. Kickers returning, punters returning, long snapper is returning.
Yep.
So let's start with the kicker. Kicker, Justin Rohrwasser, you mentioned, transferred from Rhode Island a couple years ago. He did have a pretty solid season last year. He's a 6'3", 235-pound senior, 15 out of 21 on field goals, long of 40, 39 of 41 on PATs. That's not too bad. As a matter of fact, when I went down to pick up my ticket for the Gasparilla Bowl. They had them kind of sort of at will call at the team hotel. I went and picked it up. I walked outside. I ran into someone that I knew, and there was Justin Rohrwasser standing there, and he spoke to me, and I didn't know, I felt bad. I didn't know who he was. So we talked for a minute and told him he had a pretty good season. And he said that he was not pleased with the season that he had, and he was really motivated to come back to do well first off in the bowl game, but to really come back and work hard in the offseason and have an even better 2019 season. And I thought that just resonated with me because this season's not even over yet, and he's already hungry to do better next season. I thought that was really cool. So, by all accounts, you're right. Having a great season or having a great camp. We'll see how the season goes. Punter, Robert Lefevre, you mentioned, 6'2", 196-pound junior, 62 punts last year to the 41-yard average, long of 60, pinned 21 of them inside the 20-yard line, so not too bad. And then first-team all-conference long snapper, Phil Steele, second-team all-conference long snapper, Matt Beardall, the 6'2", 218-pound senior. I mean, Marshall always seems to have a really good long snapper, which is one of those positions that just kind of goes under the radar. You don't realize you have a really good one until you end up having a bad one. But Marshall's been really fortunate. They have not had a bad long snapper in a long, long time, or, really that I can imagine. I can't imagine any long snapper just shanking them left and right. But, I mean, they've had all conference long snappers for a long time. And Matt landed on the Patrick Manley Award watch list, which goes to the FBS, the top long snapper, top senior long snapper in the FBS. So congratulations to Matt. I mean, he may go down as one of the all-timers at the position. I mean, he's already a first-team all-conference player. He's landing on the award watch list here. If he can duplicate the seasons that he's had, I mean, there's nothing left but to call the guy but an all-timer. Yep. So now we get to punt return, kick returner, and I guess the kickoff specialist. Who was the kickoff specialist last year? Which do you recall?
Well, for Keon Day, it was kickoff returner.
No. The kicker, the kickoff specialist.
The kickoff specialist. I think it was Rohrwasser, wasn't it?
Okay. I don't know. I'm just asking.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Rohrwasser.
Okay. So I guess look for him to take those duties again. So you got any names floating around? Anything that you might have heard that would lead you to believe that there are a few guys that could land this punt returner spot?
Well, maybe. I mean, I've been sitting here thinking for a while that, I don't see how Willie Johnson doesn't get some type of some action there, or kick return or punt return. I don't see how they don't try that out. I mean, the guy's just he's probably the fastest player on the team, or at least one of them. He's just blazing speed when he gets on the open field. And, he hasn't had a lot of opportunity to do that in the last couple of years. So, I want to see him in that situation. I mean, whichever situation works out better, punt return, kick return, or whichever. I don't care. I just want to see him get a chance. I mean, if it fails, it fails. That's fine. But, I want to see what he can do if given the opportunity. Another guy I was thinking about, which is kind of just brainstorming. I mean, it wasn't it's not like I know it for sure. But, I was thinking maybe R.D. Henry could get in there, a kick returner. I mean, he's a pretty quick guy. It seems like wide receivers and running backs are tailor-made to be punt return and kick returners. I mean, that's pretty much what most of them are, if not all of them. So I feel like those two guys could possibly get in there. And then one guy we were talking about just recently, new transfer slot receiver Joey Fields was apparently having a really good camp, and maybe try to put his name in the hat, so to speak, to get in there to kick returner or punt returner. So, I mean, they got options. It's not like it's a for sure thing, because it could be honestly up to the day before the game, before they make a decision. I mean, it just depends really who fits better back there, who knows how to play the position better. I don't know. I mean, it's just a brainstorm, just completely just guesswork at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little too early, but it is what it is. We can't wait until 2 days before the game to do a special teams episode. This is how it is, But it seems like one of those things okay, first off, who's the most sure-handed catching the ball? and then who's got the speed and the moves, and then it might just come down to something as simple as who's got the hot hand, going into week 1. So, but anyway, you all three of those guys you mentioned all have a similar type build. They're all the shorter slot receiver type guys, 5'8", 5'9", $170, $180, which generally lends itself to the speedier, shiftier type of player. So, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I don't see how Willie Johnson cannot not get a look. I mean, he probably is the fastest guy on the field, and he could compete being the fastest guy on the field no matter who the herd's playing that week. So yeah, it's a good call. Kick returner, I don't know, man. I mean, you mentioned that you lose Keon Davis. That's a huge loss in the kick return game, obviously. Yep. But I seem to recall, was Tyler King not returning some kicks in tandem with Keon at some point? So you'd like to think maybe he's going to get some more opportunity there.
Yep.
But as far as other kick return guys, who knows? Could be these same guys you just mentioned. I mean, it's just too early in the game. People haven't settled out into those roles yet, I don't think. So, it's a bummer we can't give you the definites, but hey, there's just no definite. But overall, if you read about, if you read the blurb about special teams in the college football preview, Phil still thinks this unit is going to be better overall in spite of losing Keon Davis as a kick returner and who'd you say? Marcel Williams as the punt returner. So, hey, if the man himself thinks that this unit overall will be better, you got to think it's going to be better overall. So let's get into this. I think I know the answer to the first question. Who's going to be the toughest one to replace off of this unit here in 2019, Trace?
Definitely got to be Keon Davis, considering he's one of only 2 significant special teams players that they are losing. It goes without saying. But, I mean, yeah, just look at the numbers he's had the last couple of years at kick return. He's been fantastic. I mean, a couple of years ago, obviously, we know those 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns against Miami, Ohio. I think he averaged, I think it was 30 yards per kick return in 2017. Last year, probably around the same. I mean, when you can essentially get the ball at the 30 every single time on kick returns, that's a productive player. That's a good player. That's somebody that can really make a difference in the field position battle and everything else. And that's a huge focal point for Doc, as we mentioned earlier about special teams being a focal point in general, but big time for the field position too. So yeah, Keon Davis is definitely the hardest to replace for sure.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Doc Holliday does not have a special teams coordinator on staff because Doc Holliday is the special teams coordinator, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
That's something that I believe, I'm not going to say he got that from when he was coaching with Urban Meyer, but I think he saw the importance of how the head coach should maybe take on that responsibility, because I believe he said that Urban Meyer always coached the special teams units when he was coaching alongside him. So, yeah. How about who are you most excited to see in 2019?
Yeah, I'm kind of torn between 2 players with this one, but because I don't know for sure if Willie Johnson's going to end up being a kick returner or a punt returner, I'm not for sure on it. I'm going to go with Robert Lefevre. I'm really interested to see him this year. I really was – that was kind of like, I don't know, one of the weirdest kind of players. Not maybe that's not the right word, but it was really interesting to see how his season played out last year. It was very just – completely night and day different from the first few games to the end of the year. Because, I remember I compared his final stats to a couple of Corey Vedvik's stats from a couple of the year before that, and he wasn't far off from Vedvik's 2 major stats. Punts inside the 20, he was only 5 short, and then punting average, he was only about 4 or 5 yards short. And that's, think of how great Vedvik was punting a couple years ago, and where Lefevre ended up being pretty close to him. So, even with a slow start. So I think now that he's got more experience under his belt, I really think he's going to be a great player this year for the Herd. He's going to make a big difference in games, as a lot of Marshall punters have done in years past. So I think Robert Lefevre, I'm probably most excited to see him.
Yeah, well, hey, giving the guy a little bit of positivity is good, because I remember how frustrated you were with special teams overall at the beginning of the season last season. And, I don't want to say in particular, but in particular, the punting. It was
just wasn't cutting it.
Yeah, right. That's right. It wasn't a detriment, so to speak, but it just needed to elevate. And by golly, by the mid to the end of the season, Lefevre seemed like a different player. So, good on you for giving him a little bit of positivity to start out. How about a breakout player for 2019? Now, I will allow you to take a cop out here, because you could say, hey, man, my breakout player is whoever the freaking punt returner is. Yeah, but I don't, so take this. You don't have to name somebody that we particularly talked about. I'll put it that way. You can have a little bit of a cop out here since there are so many unknowns.
Yeah, I'll go with the cop out there, but I'll say Willie Johnson to be more specific about it because like we both said, I mean, the guy's just blazing speed. I want to see what he can do in that situation because he's never been in that situation before that I know of. I don't remember him ever returning kicks or punts, at least off the top of my head, I don't. But so I feel like he's going to be good if he gets the opportunity. I mean, just try to imagine catching him on a punt return. Like, it's going to be tough because, like, he's so shifty and quick, and when he gets in space, it's over. So, like, I feel like that could be probably the one I would choose for that, Willie Johnson, just because, like, I feel like it's to the point now where he's going to have to start making plays. It's not really been his fault per se because he hasn't been targeted as much in the receiving game, and he hasn't had a lot of opportunities to, have the ball in his hand. So I want to see more of that this year, and I think that'll fit well for this.
I hope he does get an opportunity because I think he's basically electricity in a green uniform.
Pretty much.
If he gets a slightest bit of open field, he's going to be extremely hard to catch. So that's a good call. How about an MVP or potential MVP for the unit?
Well, I'm torn between two players with this one as well. I almost said Matt Beardall because he's excellent long snapper. But I'm going to go with Robert Lefevre again. I'm going 2 straight years. He's going to be my special teams MVP for the Herd. I think he's going to have his best year. Obviously, he only has 1 year, but I think it's going to be his best year. I could see him really being one of the top guys in the conference in terms of, punting yards per game, in terms of punts inside the 20, all that good stuff that makes a big difference. I can see him being pretty high on the Conference USA list for that. So I'm going to go with Robert Lefevre for the MVP again. I'm going 2 straight years with my man Robert.
Well, let me give you let me give you a little bit of something that may just ruin that. And that could be the fact that you might have a pretty good offense. He might not be punting too often. So
that's a good point.
Rohrwasser may end up being the special teams MVP by default just because he may have to kick 60 or 70 or 80 extra points or something like that. If you're a Herd fan, that's what you want. You want your man going 80 for 80 on PATs or something like that. Absolutely. All right, so how about a hot take for the unit? This ought to be good.
Oh, gosh.
I really don't know where you're going to go with this.
I have no idea either. Let me sit here and try to brainstorm something. I really don't know. All right, so let's think about it. I was talking about how I said Lefevre could be one of the top guys in Conference USA in punting yards per game. Now, I'm not going to predict that because I feel like that's something I do every week, I feel like. So I'll say he averages 47 yards per punt this year.
And he averaged 41 last year. So that's over a 10. What's that? That's a 15% increase in yardage from the year before, right?
That might be a weak hot take, but I don't know.
It's about 10%. 10% ish, 11% average. So you say average, would you say 46 yards?
47.
47 yards. Okay. Dude, I think Doc Holliday would take that all day long.
Let me add one more point to that. I'm going to add one more point to the hot take. All right. Okay. He's going to get 47 yards per punt, and he's going to nag about 30 punts inside the 20.
Okay. 21 the year before, so we're looking at about a roughly 50% increase over the year before. Nice. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Inside 20. All right, so it's all punting for you in the special teams category. This is pretty amazing. I was, to be honest with you, I did not see this coming. I did think there would be some positivity spoken about the punt game just because of how frustrated you were to begin the season last year, but it's turned out to be a pretty punt-heavy special teams position group breakdown for you, Trace. So, Robert, if you're listening, Trace is a big fan this year. Don't let him down.
Punter lives matter.
All right, hang with us on the other side of this break. We're going to get Steven in here, and we're going to talk Western Kentucky Hilltoppers special teams. Stick with us. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast.
It is 3rd and 5. Plenty of time. Diving with the touchdown grab. Tight end Tyler Higbee. A gain of 20 into the end zone.
All right, we're back. Steven's made it back with us. We're going to talk some Western Kentucky special teams. Steve, not a high ranking by Phil Steele, ranks the topper unit 14th in the conference. If we can talk about some key losses here in a minute, we'll talk about those projected starters here in a minute. But, thoughts on the unit as we look forward to the beginning of the 2019 season versus how 2018 ended up.
Yeah, I think last year we had, Alex Ranella handling a lot of the duties, kind of going both ways, kicking and punting. This year there's going to be some fresh blood in the water. I know the kicking competition, our buddy Phil Steele's got Corey Munson actually listed ahead of Ranella for the kicking duties. I would be surprised if that's how it shakes out. I think Ranella is going to get that first shot with his game experience that he has. And I don't think they're going to throw the freshman to the fire like that. And then we've got the Aussie, the Australian punter, John Haggerty, coming in to punt. Everything I've seen, a little bit that I've seen him in practice, he can boom the ball. He can put it down there. But, of course, that's with nobody on the field. He's by himself. So, I'd love to see that area improve compared to kind of how inconsistent it was last year. They got a lot of reps last year, and it wasn't always pretty. You'd like to flip the field and pin the opposing team and make them have a long field to work with. But, new blood, I think the ranking itself is fair. I'm not going to argue with it. I'm not going to say we need to be higher, closer to middle of the pack, given what we have to work with and kind of the unknown of what's there. But I think that we will finish better, on the special team side. Just with the kickers at least, I think we'll definitely be in better shape than what Phil Steele is kind of projecting us, which is still fair though.
Yeah, I mean, special teams cost the Tops a game or two last year, and it was apparent. It was an up and down season, so you nailed most of those projected starters. I mean, you're right. Phil says the freshman kicker Corey Munson is, the starting kicker, but I just can't see dethroning a senior kicker with tons of game experience, at least for week one. It could turn into a game of who's got the hot leg, so to speak, with who they continue to go with throughout the season. But you got to think your week one starter is going to be Alex Ranella, the 6'1", 220-pound senior. 7 of 10 on field goals last year, along with 41. Perfect 12 of 12 on PATs. And he was the kickoff guy, kickoff specialist. I mean, what's it say here? 100 kickoffs? Is that right? That can't be right. 100 kickoffs? Jeez. Oh, maybe that's like maybe that's over a couple of years. Yeah, okay, over a couple of years. So last year, 53 kickoffs, 13 of which were touchbacks. So not too bad there. You mentioned the brand new punter coming in, John Haggerty, the monster of a guy, 6'5", 230-pound junior. He's 24 years old. Played Aussie rules football, so he's tough as nails. We'll see how that translates into American football. But, these Australian punters, I was looking, and it's like over the past, I don't know, like what was it? It was like, I can't remember exactly. It was like 4 out of the last 5 years or 5 out of the last 6 years or something like that. An Australian-born punter has won the Ray Guy Award. So that's an interesting little tidbit of a stat that I stumbled upon. And we were talking about long snappers. Now, Phil still lists lists Ben Reeder as his third team all conference long snapper, but Ben's not on the roster anymore. I don't know exactly where he's moved along to, but we're going to say it's going to end up being Mitchell Harrelson, the 6'3", 190-pound freshman. So, those are your projected starters, just like what we talked about when Trace and I were talking the herd. I mean, punt returner, kick returner, things like that, where you might have some ideas of who that might be, guys that might be in line to take hold of that. But a lot of times, that goes right up until the beginning of the season before you know. So if you've heard any names, have any ideas of who it might be, guys that spent some time, got some experience doing that last year, let's talk about those guys. So any front runners that you can think of for those return men right off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Garland LaFrance back there again. He did some kick return duties. Ja'Cour Pearson's been back there. We have an incoming freshman that's a speedy guy, Dayton Wade. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get some reps back there. And then we have Therese Trainer that gray shirted last year that's becoming eligible this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see him with his speed, try to give him some game involvement. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get tested out back there. But, like you said, it's kind of a crapshoot right now. With no true knowledge except for Garland LaFrance and Ja'Cour Pearson. Those guys definitely have some experience. That's the only ones I can guarantee it will be on the field at some point. But who wins the job and is back there full time, not real sure.
Yeah, who really knows? Those are really two wild card positions for, I would say, most teams in America as you talk about summer camp and leading into week one. It's just one of those things that has kind of irons itself out right before the season starts. So it sounds like overall you feel pretty good about where this unit is headed for 2019. Expect improvement over 2018. And, we said it when we were talking herd. If you're not strong in the special teams game, I mean, it can cost you a couple of games and it can also win you a couple of games. So any championship caliber team or any team that's, really just trying to get to that 6-win plateau to begin program building again, you need to be really, really strong in the special teams game. And we all are kind of in agreement here that we think this 2019 version of Hilltopper special teams will be better than that of 2018. So let's talk about, I guess, the hardest to replace. I mean, have at it. Who's the hardest to replace from the unit?
Oh gosh, I'm literally drawing a blank on his name.
I'm gonna toss you a lifeline. Could it possibly be Ben Reeder, the pretty all conference long snapper? Was he second or third team or something like that?
Yeah. I don't know what happened there. I haven't heard anything. If it's come out, I've missed it. Usually that's kind of one of those when they report to camp. That first day, you'll see that little list of, these people didn't report. They're not on campus. Don't know what happened to him. Not sure what's going on there. We've kind of had pretty good lineage of long snappers the last few years where that's not been an issue for us. But losing him and having to plug a freshman in there, could be kind of telling, could, lose you a game if it's not a solid person in that spot. So, hopefully we'll be okay there, but, that is kind of impactful when you lose somebody that was highly thought of and highly ranked. So hate it, but
you really knew what you had in Reeder. There weren't too many snaps going awry. So, long snappers, you don't think of them. I think what Trace and I mentioned is long snapper is one of those positions you don't think of as a vital position until you got one that doesn't do the job well. Then you're thinking, geez, man, what the heck is going on? All right. So all things considered, who are you most excited to see out of this unit? Even the guys that you think may be that starting punt returner or kick returner or whatever.
Well, I've got two of them. John Haggerty, I'm excited to see, an Aussie style punter. Maybe somebody that's going to put the ball in the air a little bit longer. hopefully pin some people, inside the 20. Then I'm also excited to see Dayton Wade. I've heard good things about him in camp. I know he's a speedy guy from Florida, and I think he's going to get some opportunities. Not necessarily at wide receiver, but I think he might get in the special team game and have a chance to just kind of be that electric playmaker returning some kicks. So those two guys, no guarantees, but I would love to see both of them on the field making some good plays.
Well, piggybacking off of that, who do you think would be your breakout player for the unit this year?
Well, I'm going to go with Mr. Ranella. I think he kind of had an up and down season last year, kicking the ball. He had kind of all the duties in his lap and wasn't always put in successful situations to promote him having a good outcome. Had some kicks blocked last year. I'm sure that's been a focus and something that has had to be improved. If not, I think he'll kind of get leapfrogged over pretty quick. So I hope Ranella kind of smooths that out, is put in better situations with, easier chip shot field goals if that's what we have to settle for. And I think he's going to kind of bust through and kind of solidify that position for his senior year.
Yeah. I mean, good solid pick. Lighten the load on the man, allow him to focus on maybe one thing this year. Should prove beneficial, that's for sure. How about an MVP for the special teams unit?
Well, I hope they're all MVPs. I hope they're all making kicks and good punts. But, I'm going to switch up a little bit. I'm going to go with Haggerty. Like you said, special teams can make or break you. When we were kind of at our best in 15 and 16, we were just a solid all around to the details special teams unit, kicking and returning, the snapper, everything was just a very good unit. And hopefully we get back to that. And I think Haggerty kind of being fresh blood, new competition, a little bit older, more mature player. I think he's going to come in and hopefully be that guy that kind of propels us to the next level.
Yeah, it's a good choice. All right, so here's where it kind of gets tough. It's time for a hot take for the special teams. I don't know if you caught what Trace's was, but I'll recap it for you. I don't know if you're going to go as a unit or individually. Trace decided to go with an individual hot take. He says herd punter Robert Lefevre will average 47 yards and get 30 punts inside the 20. So just a little bit of a taste of where Trace is at with this. So where are you at with hot take for the special teams?
Yeah, I mean, sort of in that same kind of mold. I'm going to use the punter and the fact that Phil Steele has us ranked 14th, which, like I said, it's a fair ranking, given the unknown of some of those guys that will be in position. But I think Haggerty's going to finish in the upper half in, total net punting yards on an average kick. I think he's got a big leg on him. I think he has good game experience, and hopefully that translate over into gameplay. And, if we're having to punt the ball, hopefully not often, but hopefully he's flipping the field and not leaving them with a short field and making them have to put together a long drive to hopefully, put our offense in a better situation. So I think Haggerty is going to be a top half of the league punter when all is said and done.
Okay. Well, hey, from projected last by one of the best in the business to the upper half, I'd say that's a pretty fair hot take. Now, look, you weren't able to link up with us last week when we were doing wide receivers and tight ends, and I covered as best I could for you, but I absolutely refused to lay a hot take on the line for these Topper fans because that is your job, my man, and they want to hear it from you. So I can't let you out of here this week without giving us a hot take from that wide receiver or tight end unit that, fans can, I don't know if they're interested in that sort of thing to see how accurate we are by the end of the season. But so what do you got for us? Give us a hot take for the wide receiver / tight ends.
Yeah, I think our guy, Jock Sloan, returning from injury, I think he will lead the league in average yards per reception. He's a downfield threat. He is consistently averaging close to 20 yards per catch. Obviously, there has to be like a minimum threshold. Somebody that has one catch for 40 yards doesn't count.
Right.
He's going to have a lot of targets. He's going to be down the field, hopefully a lot of touchdowns. So Jock Sloan, the speedy, the burner, is going to lead Conference USA in per yards average reception.
Now, just a reminder, folks, from that episode, Jock Sloan averaged 16 yards per catch in 2018. So, the bar is set pretty high just for himself from the season before. Of course, we don't know how it's going to pan out. And yes, I know, Steven's right. Average fan's going to take out anybody that's got, one catch for 60 yards or, 5 catches or something like that. It's going to have to be a bona fide wide receiver that's an integral part to any offense in the league. But hey, pretty hot take there. I mean, when you talk about leading the league in anything, I don't care what the stat is. That's a pretty hot take. So, all right, Jock Sloan leading the Conference USA in yards per reception for 2019. We'll see if it all happens. All right, guys, we're going to head into final thoughts this week and move along and prep and get ready, because next week, I think it's the episode that everybody has been waiting on, and that's quarterbacks. And we'll also be touching a little bit on the coaching staff. So, all right, Trey, send us out of here with some final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said to start the show off. I mean, I feel like special teams is such a crucial part of Marshall's success, especially in the Doc Holliday era. I mean, if you look at it, like I'm just thinking back to – I got more to add to this, but I'm thinking back to even 2011 season. That was the second season. They blocked 6 punts that year, and they won every game they blocked a punt in. I mean, that's a big deal. And then I remember other games where it's like that you could make the argument that the special teams won them the game. I mean, think back to that UAB game in 2014 when Marshall was 10-0. Offense was struggling. They couldn't do anything. Tyler Williams punted the ball. They downed it at the 1, actually inside the 1 yard line. And then about 3 plays later, they had a strip sack, which touchdown gave them the lead, and they ended up winning that game. So, you can make so many games. Marshall special teams has bailed them out. And over the last few years, they've been really good for special teams efficiency. I did a little digging into that, and according to ESPN.com, special teams efficiency from 2015 onward, 2015, 16, 17, 18, in 2015, they were number 1 in the FBS in special teams efficiency. Number 1. And then in 2016, in a 3-9 year, they were number 30 in the FBS in special teams efficiency. 2017, they were number 13. And 2018, they were number 21. That's an average of 16th in the FBS over the last 4 seasons in special teams efficiency. That's high. I mean, that's big time, really. I mean, not enough people really think about that, but that's a huge deal. And Doc said it ad nauseum over the years about how special teams are important and how he wants to win the field position battle, how he wants to, do all that stuff. And it's a big deal for him, and it's a big deal for the team because it's really honestly won them quite a few games over the years. So I feel like it's going to be more the same this year. They're going to need to have that. Special teams efficiency is going to have to be high again. And if they want to get back and win a conference title for the first time in a few years, they're going to have it. So we'll see.
Well, look, you don't really have to look any further than the 2014 Conference USA title game. I mean, the kicker won that game for them. Yes, Rakeem Cato threw the go-ahead touchdown with a couple minutes left in the fourth quarter, but it's the kicker that won the game for them.
Yep. He got MVP of that game.
And I was going to say, and he ended up being the MVP of the Conference USA title game. So on a rainy, dreary, drizzly, crappy day to play football, the kicker was so clutch.
Yes.
And special teams are vital to winning. If you don't have efficient special teams, if you look like the Keystone Cops out there running around not knowing what you're doing, chances are you're going to turn the ball over, and it's going to lead to some easy scores for your opposition. So you're right on the money, Trace, and I am thoroughly impressed with those stats that you just threw out there, thinking at no point in the last 4 seasons was Marshall any worse than 30th in special teams efficiency. That's pretty amazing, especially when you talk about leading the country in 2015. That's pretty amazing. All right, Steve, what you got for us? Final thoughts this week, and we'll wrap it up.
We're inching closer to the season, getting to the end of our position breakdowns pretty soon. football's in the air. Scrimmages are happening. Pads are popping. We're hearing more fall camp notes and details and position battles. So, excitement. It's in the air. It's football time. So we're, 19 days away now. So I'm ready. Let's go. Good season.
Yeah, it is getting close. It is so close. You can almost taste it. I mean, preseason NFL football is on. I mean, it's here. It is all but here. All right. Like I said before, join us next week. The conclusion of the position group breakdown series. We're talking quarterbacks and the coaching staffs. So until next week, Steve, take us out.
Go Tops.
Trace.
Go Herd.
We will see you next week. That's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Later.